What's up, guys? How are you? How's everything? It's me, Ebot. I'm going to come at you with another video. And today I want to talk about Masters of the Universe Revelations, the brand new animated series by none other than Kevin Smith on Netflix. It's a Netflix original, right? Or Netflix show, exclusive to Netflix, that was pitched to Kevin, right? Some other people that are fans and that worked at Mattel, that basically they wanted to come from it from a different angle and perspective. And there's a lot of controversy. There's a lot of backlash. There's a lot of hate. A lot of trolling. And to be honest, I feel like a lot of it's been taken out of proportion. A lot of Kevin Smith's, comments have been taken out of context in some point, to some extent. And a lot of the things that have been said were things that were said by people that Kevin Smith worked for, right? Not necessarily out of him, right? As you all know, Kevin Smith is a big comic fan. He's a writer, he's a director, he's done many movies. Cop Out with Bruce Willis, Morgan Freeman, Tracy Morgan. He's done Tusk, which was extremely interesting, and a very different type of horror movie, very creepy, but unique, right? He also did I think it was Red State, where it's a movie talking about a lot of things about religion. It touches a lot of patriotic and diplomatic stuff in that movie. And Kevin Smith has always been one of us, right? In the sense that he understands fandom, he understands the attachment that people have to certain things. And I feel like he's being judged before before his actual entire case has been presented. Meaning the Netflix series has 5 episodes, and it's clearly a setup episode for what comes next, or for the rest of it, right? Because it's the beginning of something that's supposed to be a continuation of what was the Filmation. And as you can see in front of me, these are the new Masters of the Universe Origins. These are not the Revelation toys because I haven't had the luck to find them. And this is where and what I grew up with, right? With these guys. These are very much the vintage style and look, with updated articulation, obviously in some cases, altered faces. In some cases, the old school faces. As you see behind me, I have the Castle Grayskull from Classics. I have everything from Classics. I went all in. I was one of those who collected it for 9 years. I had to put it away because it was near display. But I had to put it away because they started to get brittled and some of them got messed up. And because of this, they started to break. So I had to start replacing some. So I didn't want to have to go through the whole headache and hassle of having to pay astronomical prices on the aftermarket to replace every single figure. So I decided, let me just put them away so that they don't get messed up, right? And so I have a place where I can basically store them or showcase them a lot safer, a lot friendlier, in a friendlier environment where they won't get messed up. And this is how I got introduced to He-Man. The way it was first, a toy line. And each of these figures came with a comic book with the stories of the He-Man lore that was being created as the toy line was released and went along and moved forward. And the other thing that I was introduced and that made the lore for me for He-Man was this. The artwork. This is an original artwork, even though it's modernized. This is the Origins Land Shark. Yes, it is. It's the Origins Land Shark. That was also my introduction to He-Man. The artwork from Rudy Obrero that looked very Conan-esque, dark, gritty, that unified this barbaric world with a very sci-fi, futuristic, gadgetry type of style as well, with mystical creatures that are very majestic, dragons, and all types of things. So when I was, into the toy line and I started seeing that they made the Filmation cartoon, I got very excited because it was like, cool, they're going to do a He-Man cartoon. But since that was in the early 80s, the truth of the matter is that a lot of, sorry ladies and gentlemen, sorry about that, ladies and gentlemen. The truth of the matter is a lot of the things that were in Filmation, right, I was disappointed with. I had the absolute honor and privilege to be a part of a piece of history now of He-Man, thanks to John Carroll, who did the documentary of He-Man with wonderful people like Pixel Dan that were involved, called Playtime Masters. And in my interview with him, I explained to him that my love for He-Man came from the toys, the artwork, the comic, and not really Filmation. And when I saw the Filmation cartoon, I was very disappointed in the cartoon because it felt too kiddie-ish. It was too campy. And I wasn't very old. I was probably maybe about, I want to say 8 years of age. Maybe 9. Hold on, ladies and gentlemen. Give me 1 second. Yeah, ladies and gentlemen. So, like I was trying to say, I was maybe about 8 or 9. So, I already had a better grasp in my life of content, right? That was more to the liking of a younger teenager. So I watched it, I enjoyed it, and it had a lot of good messaging. But every episode of Filmation was basically talking about. It was like an advertising message for kids of what to do between good and bad, right? What was right and what was wrong in life and in society, which was a very positive and very wonderful thing, which I had a better, bigger appreciation as I got older, because, as an adult, understanding what it was and getting and grasping, what it was trying to do. With Alan Oppenheimer being one of the characters, it was a Lou Scheimer production, obviously from Filmation, just like all of his cartoons. So it was wonderfully done, but the honest truth is they ain't done for just a younger audience that were very childlike in mentality. He-Man never even used a sword in any of his fights. He only used a sword to deflect something, or to maybe throw it at a rock, and that rock, he would throw it at a rock, and that rock would break in half. Things like that. But mainly, all his physicality with Skeletor was him grabbing him and throwing him and shoving him somewhere, and then maybe tying him up. I saw Masters of the Universe, and I want to talk about it in the sense of that by episode. First and foremost is Powerhouse Studios who's doing the animation. So off the back, the very positive plus it has is that it looks absolutely stunning. It's gorgeous. The artwork is immaculate, like we've never seen He-Man before. And yes, it rivals that of 2000X, which I completely enjoyed and loved and adored all those TV episodes, and I enjoyed and loved and adored all the looks of those characters. Which, by the way, when that cartoon came out, people were angry because they changed the look from a much more mature anime style to what it was with these. Which these are also nice and are very well appreciated. But when you compare this Fisto, right, for example, to this Fisto, right, which is what Classics did with the amalgamation of what they did and introduced in 2000X, they just look cheesy. They just did. They look cheesy. This looks very cheesy, but it has a nostalgia because this is what I grew up with. And my parents got heavy into religion, and when they got heavy into religion, my parents gave these figures all away because they told them that demons and evil spirits hid behind these materialistic objects because we're idolizing them when it was just a form of enjoyment to pretend and you're playing in these worlds to give you an imagination and a sense of escape. And I'll start with episode 1, which was The Power of Grayskull, which basically feels very much like a continuation of Filmation, but years later when they're much more older, much more mature, much more war-torn, and much more heavy-hearted. Right? And I want to tell you right off the bat, I think Kevin Smith wrote this series beautifully. He gave this series a lot of heart. He gave these characters much more meaning and worth than we've ever seen them before in any medium, even in the 2000X. Okay? Even in the 2000X. Even though that's a really good series. And I still, for the most part, enjoy that one maybe a tad bit more than the new one. But at the same time, I haven't finished seeing this one, and I don't know where this one can go. This one, Kevin Smith's approach has put it into a position where it can go in many directions and grow and make it very worth our while. It is very compelling in the story. And this will be spoiler heavy. I will speak about things and my thoughts. So if you don't want spoilers, leave now and come back later, right? And watch the rest of the video. The Power of Grayskull, they're having a great battle. Starts off with, a ceremony. Teela, Palace. Teela finally becomes the man-at-arms, because that's the ranking for the Palace Eternian Guards, once they reach that highest rank that her father did, which was Duncan. So he's passing the mantle basically to her once he's retired, gone, or, no longer in charge. Now she is the new man-at-arms. And that is something that was made for a cartoon, because in the toy line his name was Man-at-Arms. It wasn't because he was a specialist in creating weapons and vehicles. He creates all the vehicles like the jet sled in the Eternian world. And then you see that they come across with He-Man and Stridor, and he's bringing over some minions of Skeletor, and they go into Castle Grayskull, and Sorceress meets them outside, and you find out that it was that they're trying to, cast a spell with a magic wand that he has, a Staff of Shifting, and disguise himself, and Sorceress, immediately lays the hand on him and breaks his back. But what she didn't realize was that Faker, He-Man, was actually the He-Man that was there. She thought it was He-Man, the real He-Man. And even Stridor was Nightstalker. And there's a lot of fan service in this. There's a lot of Easter eggs, a lot of stuff. And so Kevin Smith chose to do Faker the way they did in the Filmation cartoon, where he had the real skin and not the blue skin. Because then, how is he He-Man? And people know that he's not really the Faker He-Man. They call him Faker He-Man because he's a robot that's built to pose as He-Man to trick the people and trick the masters. So they have this battle, and the love and campiness and the actual silliness in the with the dialogue from Filmation is still somewhat there between Orko and Cringer. Orko still is goofing up his magic, because in Eternia, Orko's magic works backwards. It doesn't work correctly. But in Trollan, where he comes from, he's one of the most powerful wizards. And the nameless one, which was introduced in classics, being Gorpo, I believe, is the technical or real name. He's the evil Orko, which he creates the Snake Men. Because Scott Knightley and team wrote it in that way, where, for classics, where they unified everything from all factions, whether it was comics from DC, from the originals, artwork, conceptual arts, all types of stuff. And Kevin Smith actually translated all of that into the new cartoon. There are a lot of nods, throwbacks, and respectful and very respectful nods to everything in the He-Man world. He fits it in very seamlessly and beautifully with coherent thought process into the show. He even throws a nod at the movie, the real life movie with Dolph Lundgren. When the Skeletor fights He-Man, he said, let this be our final battle. And that is exactly what Frank Langella tells He-Man, Dolph Lundgren in the movie, to pay nod to the movie. And so they fight, and He-Man does the most heroic thing any superhero would do. Kind of like Tony Stark does in Avengers Endgame. As an example, Skeletor breaks the orb of power from the Elders that preserves all of the power of Eternia under the wall and chambers of Castle Grayskull. And he did something really different, really cool, that I actually think is pretty brilliant. And I actually think that not only is it brilliant, I think it works really well. He made the Hall of Chambers with the Elders actually be the first real grounds of what is to us Castle Grayskull. And Castle Grayskull is an outside, a real thing, but it's really a case of a hologram almost to mask and hide Elders' Hall of Chambers underneath it. So it's a real thing, Castle Grayskull, but it's disguising the Hall of Chambers, which in 2000X with King Grayskull, when they introduced him in the story, they showed that Castle Grayskull was this beautiful palace-looking thing, and through the centuries, it aged and got old, and then turned to look to what we knew it from the very beginning. So, in a sense, it almost is the same thing, but without the idea that Castle Grayskull looking like that is really an illusion to us, right? But it still looks and feels like a real thing and matter, right? And also, that Hall of, from the Elders actually looks more like Castle Grayskull as opposed to a round thing like they did, or a round building like they did in 2000X. I'm a true He-Man fan, been all my life. So I'm speaking from my heart, and I really thoroughly loved this show because he made it so different. He added so much stakes. He built it in a way where it's now not just He-Man's show. It's Masters of the Universe, the show. And it gets me mad because I see all these people saying a lot of things that are fans and skewing it up and twisting it around, and even twisting around what Kevin Smith has said, like when he said that he didn't like Orko, which is not what he said. He actually said Orko was a character that wasn't really well liked from the old cartoons, and that people, generally, the majority of people, really didn't like him, which he's right. Most people didn't like Orko. It was through the years of Orko being in the story and the lore that we learned to love him. Now, all these years later, he's very beloved. But it's kind of like Jar Jar Binks in Star Wars, where a lot of people just did not like Jar Jar in the episodes that were the prequels from George Lucas. And now it seems like people have, really come to terms with the character and love him and appreciate him and understand why he fits and why he has a part in that world. Right? Because he was dead and created and done, and he was there for the children. So, He-Man does the most heroic thing ever, like a boss, because Skeletor cracks that orb, and that means everyone in Eternia is going to die. So He-Man splits the swords in half and makes and creates this, it creates the powers all to come and separate and distort everything that's going on, where it's so powerful where even himself cannot withhold it. So the powers of the half of the swords, even after he stabs Skeletor, because he tricked him in a way where he ended up opening the chamber where the orbs was, he ends up dying, and so does Skeletor. Right? And what happens after that is Teela now, because she's so angry, she's so afraid, Teela decides to leave and goes away after Randor discovers for the first time that He-Man is Adam, his son, which he didn't know. And mind you, Queen Marlena didn't know either. But Kevin Smith did it where a mother intuition, where she knows, and she knew all along that He-Man was Adam, which I also thought was a very beautifully done thing, because that's a very real thing. Mothers always know, in most cases, the things of their children, even though he never told them. And the secret that Adam has always kept has always been between Sorceress Orko and obviously Man-at-Arms, which is Duncan, because it was to protect everyone else around him that he loves from getting hurt, killed, destroyed, or taken by forces of evil, like Skeletor. Wasn't to hurt anyone, but Teela took it as, how can you not tell me? Because Teela has an unconditional love with Adam, or for Adam, almost like a brother. But she really is in love with He-Man, which is Adam, right? And she finds out when he sacrifices himself. And Kevin Smith said very clear, like things like when I was just telling you, that because Orko wasn't really liked, for example, right? He wanted to make it where he gave Orko some worth and so much value to make people like him, and then do something drastic with him where people will be upset because he's not there no more, and I guess kind of appreciate now. Damn, now I appreciate Orko so much, I want him back, right? Which I think was really well done in the way he did it. So, Man-at-Arms is cast away by Randor, because Randor is so angry, because Man-at-Arms and Randor are very close, and he feels betrayed because Man-at-Arms never told him, Now he's angry because his son is dead. The heir to the throne is gone. And so he's very upset. So he does what any king really does, and how kings used to act. He took his power and just told him to go away. Not because he didn't care, but because he was angry. Because he lost his son. And his wife was hysterical, which is Queen Marlena. Which we all know, He-Man is half human and half Eternian. It's Queen Marlena was an astronaut, an explorer that used to explore through black holes that were created, and they would explore it, and that's how she came to be in Eternia, and was found after her shuttle, her crew crash landed, and only she survived. And then ultimately, Randor found her, she stayed there, and fell in love with him, and became his wife. Now, in the show, you go to the second episode, it's called The Chamber, right? Or the Poison Chalice. And the Poison Chalice is a relic of magic that they need, right? That's in Snake Mountain. Now, what he did was, we go and fast forward to some odd years later, and She-Ra has become a mercenary with a character called Andrea. And that character was a comic book character that was race swapped, but she was never really used in any format other than a comic, in one comic, I believe. So I didn't mind that. It was okay if they race swapped. It wasn't a big deal. Because they did it in a respectful, tasteful way anyway. And so Andra is very close to Teela, because she's the scientist and She-Ra is the warrior, even. And so what happened with Teela is she lost all her faith in magic, and now only believes in science. That's man-made, because it's the only thing that's safe to her, because she can control the science. You see? So they're collecting relics of magic for people for money, and then she tells them, "No, why are you believing that stuff when only thing guaranteed is science?" So he almost implemented what happens in our real life and society, which was also wonderfully written. That most people want to believe in superficial things, or don't believe in God, and want to put religion aside when this is too greater of a thing that can't be created by man, right? So he implemented that in the story. He made it about religion versus science and mankind, and how we've forgotten all the religious values of life and how beautiful and wonderful those things are, and only want to believe in man-made things. You see? Where there are some things in life that are just unexplainable. And remember that Sorceress is Teela's mother, but she does not know this. And for all you that don't know, that's the big secret. And I hate that these people that are calling themselves fans, that they're not fans, they're just worried about clickbaiting for their channels on YouTube, especially, to get those clicks and views and subs. Don't break these things down, because when you're watching the show, in this episode is the first time that they allude that Teela has a bigger purpose. But her purpose has to do with magic, which she doesn't believe in anymore, because her mother's about to tell her, but then Teela cuts her off. I don't want to hear it, this and that. And then there's a beautiful segment with Cringer. And Cringer is as majestic as he's ever been, and says something to Teela so beautifully about her being hurt, and her being angry, and her feeling like she failed Adam, and that she would continue to fail him because of the fact that he is no longer here present with us, right? So this person's asking him for help, and it turns out to be Evil-Lyn. But then we find out that it's Evil-Lyn was summoned by the sorceress. The sorceress asks her for help. Then the sorceress goes and tells Teela, "I need you to do this. I need you to go find the two halves of the swords in Subternia and Spondos, which is Preternia in the original mythos, which was the past where the dinosaurs existed in that era in the He-Man world. And then Subternia is like another dimension, all the evil stuff are, with things like Hordak and Scarecrow exist and stuff like that, where I believe Skeletor was created when he got the form, when he was Skeletor, right? So it wasn't that He-Man said, oh look, She-Ra here, Teela, here's the sword, you'll be the next He-Man, like people trying to say that she's going to be the new He-Man. No, not at all. And Teela breaks down in tears and shows her love for Cringer and Adam and how much she needs him and misses him. So no, there's no SJW agendas here being pushed, because since the very beginning, all the women in He-Man were very powerful, sexy, beautiful, and strong. They didn't have to be told that they were, because the people involved in the original Filmation and the toy line and all those things were also women. They were respectfully implemented. Okay? Even though He-Man was more garnered to boys. And She-Ra, being his He-Man's sister, was focused for girls because girls were also interested in the show. So, plus it was a way to make more money, obviously, as a company. So, what ended up happening is, now they embarked on this journey. And what Smith did that was very elegant and genius as well was, he made Subternia, which is aka Preternia, into, right? He made it into heaven, so to speak, metaphorically, right? Yeah, it is like heaven. And the Spondos is hell, the land of the dead, right? And during this time, as they're doing this, when they go to Snake Mountain, before they go to Sunshine, you realize that Triclops took control of Snake Mountain and has created an ideal for the people that believe in, science in the wrong way, that science is the way to go, like a cult science type of group, right? Like almost like L. Ron Hubbard with Scientology and all that other stuff, right? His books were, right? And that's basically what it's talking about. It's like the Scientologist. He becomes a Scientologist, and this is what he's promoting, and he's controlling Castle Grayskull. Even Trapjaw and Whiplash, and even a great appearance by, which we never seen before, Blast Attack, that they have more gadgetry to them, I guess, when they fought and had those injuries and scars, and they replaced them with gadgets and cybernetic stuff, which I hope they take that away later on and fix it and take it back to where it was, because I don't like how some of the characters look. They look kind of cheesy with those circuitry. But for the sake of the story, it, made sense that Triclops would take over and push more the science aspect as opposed to the magic. Because he was never about magic, right? He was Skeletor's man-at-arms, where he did his gadgetry, and they even put the Seekers from the 2000X in there, which is wonderful throwback and nod to the 2000X. So then we'll go right to, the third episode, which was The Most Dangerous Man in Eternia. Which brings us to Teela reuniting with her father, Man-at-Arms. And they show how powerful Man-at-Arms is. And once again, in that episode, He-Man shows up where they're battling Merman. Just like in the beginning of the other episode, or during the middle, when they went, in the second episode, her and Andrea, to Snake Mountain. They throw a throwback showing He-Man and Teela how they would fight in the Filmation as well, to do certain things when they were fighting Whiplash, and for the reasons they were in Snake Mountain. So they keep giving you throwbacks showing He-Man. So the show very much has He-Man in every episode. Every episode has He-Man or Adam, and it's always focused and talks about He-Man and the relationship between him and what he meant and Adam meant to Teela and to Eternia. So it's not a show about Teela only. She's the front runner as the show goes on in the characters, but the show is about the masters of the universe. Every master of the universe that was never able to shine before, that's in the show, has now been able to get a spotlight to shine and have value and worth like never before. And I'm talking about Roboto, which played by Justin Long. They made Roboto and they changed his art about coming from space, being built by Man-at-Arms in this third episode, and he has all the Man-at-Arms memories and intelligence. So he put him in the show, and he's evolving from a robot to actually being almost human-like, because he appreciates all the values of family and of the human species in Eternia. They form an alliance, so they go to Subternia, and they go to the land of the dead, which is the Spondos, right, to find the two halves. In this episode, once again, she reunites with her father, and her father asks her for forgiveness. And he starts to cry, and Teela embraces him and starts to cry. It's not making the men, like people are trying to say, be worthless or not have any value. The entire time they're showing the importance of a man and a woman, family, father and daughter, and friendship. That's what it's showing the entire time. Then they embark, and she asks her father, he wants to go with her to go to the Spondos. She says, no, go to Castle Grayskull and protect the sorceress, because she's old and getting weak, because the magic is dying. And if they don't get these two halves of the swords together, all of Eternia is going to die, and the universe and every planet, including Earth, everything will cease to exist, because Eternia is the core power source of all the universe and the magic that's on it, which is only able to be there by the two swords being together as one, which is the power sword. So now they have to try to restore that. And that's why it's important, because everything's going to cease to exist. It's not about like She-Ra becoming the next He-Man, like people are trying to say. No. It's about the Masters of the Universe galloping, doing a fellowship like Lord of the Rings, to help each other out and going on this journey to get the half swords to try to protect and save Eternia. And they were sent by Sorceress, because she's dying. So she tells He, Man-at-Arms, to go and protect her, because she can handle what they're going to do. And Roboto, knowing his intelligence, can come with them, so Roboto can fuse the swords together the way that Man-at-Arms would know how to do it as a scientist, right? And a technology guy. Wasn't because she told him to go over there, because Man-at-Arms is not a secondary character. Because what happens after that is they go on the journey to find it, and Merman knows how to get there. They're going in a boat in the water, and her father shows up anyway because they get attacked, to protect them and save them. She gets saved and protected by her dad once again, which then she asked him, but Dad, I told you not to come. And he said, how could I not? I love you. Meaning, I'm your father. I had to do what was right and make sure you made it on your journey. And Teela starts to cry and embraces her dad. Once again, showing her femininity, showing her values and attributes and characteristics of a female, of a woman that is in love. The haircut, look, and all that, that was her anger, trying to be, up to date, of course, and showing that she was angry in the type of lifestyle that she became a mercenary. It wasn't to try to act like she's a butch, or she's trying to be a dyke, or trying to be gay, or LGBT. No. And never once in that relationship with Andrea, when they're talking, does you get the idea that they are girlfriend in that way, in a relationship. Andrea is like the fanboy in the show. She wants to be a warrior, and Teela's basically telling her, don't push the idea of being a warrior. You're not missing out. You're just setting yourself up basically for disappointment, hurt, and chaos, because you're going to have no control and lose all those that you love. And that's what she was telling her. Okay? That's what she was saying in the entire messaging. And the entire time she talks about, I want to meet this guy, Man at Arms. Oh, He-Man must have been amazing. Look, you know who this is? This is Hero, when we get later on into the show. Which is basically talking about their legends and who they are. Because she's the fangirl. And she's fanboy. She's supposed to be us, the audience, in the show. Not Teela's lover. That's a lie. There's a lot of people out there, which you guys know who they are, saying that that's what they're pushing, and it's not true. You don't get that at all. At all in the writing. Which Smith didn't lie about. So then, they go there, he saves her, and they finally open up and go to the Spondos with the skull half here on the top part of the staff of Skeletor that opens up the door with, a stone that's there with a corpse. And they go into the Spondos. So we'll jump in after that to episode 4, which is the Land of the Dead, where they meet up with none other than Scareglow, which they also allude to the idea that he's basically Skeletor in a spiritual form in that dimension, which in this case is hell, and he's supposed to be like a form of Skeletor there, but a different character at the same time. Very powerful, very evil. And so the way he makes deals is by people giving him their fears. So everybody that's with her, which is Beastman, Teela, Evil-Lyn, Orko, and Roboto, and Andrea, they all get put in a position in 3 different setups of fear of their own that he's trying to encapsulate from them, right? And in this episode, Tony Todd, aka Candyman, is absolutely brilliant. Scareglow is absolutely brilliant. But at the same time, Orko is the absolute star and heart, alongside Cringer, of the show. Even Roboto, with his messaging, and even Mossman. Because Mossman, he tries to protect He-Man in the first episode, which I forgot to mention, and gets killed. But Mossman is plant. He's made out of nature. So we all know plants die and grow again. So he's not a character that cannot be brought back. So a lot of the characters that Kevin Smith chose to kill off are characters that can actually be brought back. And it would make sense because of the world and what they stand for. Orko is absolutely the star and heart of the whole story. Because Orko's also now sick and dying. And he's trying to do one last hurrah with the person he loves, which is Teela, and friends and family, in this case in Roboto, and Man at Arms, before he dies. He wants to die a hero, right? But remember, we are now in Despondos, which is no longer Eternia. So he's actually getting stronger. His magic works. So they all go through their trials and tribulations. They all face their fears and do what they have to do. There's a very, very nice dynamic between Orko and Evil-Lyn, where they speak about how they became, how they got their names, a little bit of their background. Really brief, really quick, but enough to give you enough information to appreciate both of them in a different way and see them in a different light, especially Evil-Lyn. And then they try to escape once Teela faces her demons, which is He-Man, which is an evil form, which is Evil He-Man, which is a very big nod and throwback, it feels, to Star Wars, like when Luke met Darth Vader in the actual cave, And it's because she feels like she failed He-Man and Adam. And they meant a lot to her. So she faces him in her fears. She ends up overcoming it, right? So she ends up overcoming her fears, fighting the evil He-Man. And she overcomes herself when she sees herself the way she was a few years before everything happened. And overcame her fears and earned the right to get the half of the story. And like any villain, Scareglow tries to go back on his word after he gives the sword and tries to attack them and keep them there trapped when Evelyn uses the half of the sword to open it up, the door and the gates to go to Subternia, which is Evan. And in the midst of doing that, she gets weakened and she's very weak. She uses most of the power she has left in her staff. And basically can't fight. But Orko comes at Scareglow like an absolute champion. And he takes him on. And when Orko takes him on, he locks him in these rings, right? And puts something on his wrist where he locks him up. And he tells him, I'm okay. And he fights Scareglow basically to the death. And takes him away to the land of shadows, as he says. Which, again, because it's wizards and magic, and it has to do with wizardry, Orko can very much come back. Because he's a magician. And Eternia is a land of magic and wizardry. So, I don't think he's actually dead forever. He might be. But he gave Orko so much value and worth in this episode and in this show, or in this half of the show, that you have no choice but to absolutely adore and love Orko like never before. He is truly badass, a complete badass, and it's wonderful to see. Because you've always seen Orko as this goofy, quirky thing that was mainly a joke. No, now Orko truly feels like one of the masters of the universe. Go figure. The show is called Masters of the Universe Revelations, talking about each and every one of the masters of the universe. Now they are getting the same value that He-Man is. So not only do you love He-Man the way you did when you was little and Skeletor, but now you can love the subsidiary characters like, let's say, a Ninjor that really didn't play a part in the way that he wrote them in. So, because Orko does this sacrifice, they manage to escape and go to Subternia. Now, they're in episode 5, which is the Forge at the forest is forever. Meaning, this is the place where the champions, as they say in the show, go to lay rest for eternity. And so they go back and pay homage to a bunch of the He-Mans before the new He-Man. And in this particular segment, they showed King Grayskull, but they also race swapped the way he was introduced in the comics of the 80s, and obviously in the 2000X when he was first introduced in the animation. It was like he was a descendant of He-Man, his ancestor. So it really didn't make sense when I read it in the Revelations comic. But when they explained it in the show, it's basically every He-Man is its own character. They're not related. So they kind of could get away with it. And I don't mind that. That's okay. So what they did was they showed Vicor, the conceptual art of He-Man. They showed Hero, the He-Man that comes from the cosmos with the power of He, that then he gives to Grayskull, and ultimately Grayskull becomes the first true human He-Man in Eternia during the era of Preternia. In this case, he's African American, black, but he looks pretty cool, and he was played by the none other than the gentleman from the Allstate commercials. I forgot his name at the moment, and I feel so bad because shame on me. He's awesome. He has a fantastic, very powerful voice, which he played him very well, very brief but well. And they even throw nods to the dinosaur characters and creatures of the toy line that were only released in Europe, that were from the Grayskull line, that was supposed to continue after Masters of the Universe Filmation. They were going to go on that route to introduce characters like the Elder, Hero, and things like that. Then they show Wondar, which he was supposed to be created as a mail-in giveaway from the Wonder Bread. And if you mail out for him, you got a He-Man that looked like He-Man, but he had an armor of the cosmos, like the cosmic being from the world of Zodak, which is a cosmic being. So he was like a cosmic, version of He-Man. And so in this episode, they bury Urkel, they give him a proper burial there. And they meet up with Adam. Adam is there. And Adam was so humble, and he was so heroic in the sense that he chose to stay in the form of Adam and not He-Man for his eternity, to stay there. He just wanted to be Adam. He didn't see himself as a hero, which he was in He-Man. How cool is that? How powerful is that? As far as narrative-wise. A young boy with so much to learn, and still knowing that he was a big entity, chose to be the humble boy because he didn't see himself as a hero. And you call that bad writing? And that's called putting He-Man to the side and not making him worth and valuable? I mean, I don't know what show y'all were watching, those that are hating on it. I know what show I was watching. And I was glued to my seat every episode. And I can't wait to the next 5 episodes. So, he tells the story. And in this episode, they show a little part where they show 2 men embracing, which I think it was supposed to be that they were gay. But it was very brief, very classy, to say the least. It wasn't distasteful, so I didn't mind it because they had representation, right? But it wasn't done in a pushing it down your throat type of way. You see what I'm saying? And I enjoyed it. I thought it was cool. I thought that was cool to have for people that are gay or from the LGBT community, to have something that they can appreciate, right? And that they can see that they're acknowledged, right? So, Adam gives her the other half of the sword. Roboto forges the sword. And they actually showed the play set that they created for Eternia in the toy line, which was intended to be Eternia in toy form because they couldn't do it the way they did it in Filmation, because it was like a big palace or a castle, that was supposed to represent Eternia, right? And the palace where they live with King Randor. So they did it in a more toyetic way, and it had the 3 towers with the railing that goes around, and they showed it in animation form, which I thought was wonderful. We've never seen it before. And each tower did something and represented something. So in the middle tower, Hero, alongside Roboto, started to forge the sword. And they did. And when they forged the sword, the power blast and impact, all the power going through it to combine it together was so powerful that it ended up destroying Roboto. And Roboto dies. But before Roboto dies, he says, I'm embracing death because now I feel what you feel as humans, which is fear. So I feel and understand like a human being. So he got to where he wanted to be, which was to feel like a human. Absolutely beautiful. Kind of like Short Circuit in the movie, right? Number 5 is alive from Short Circuit. Beautiful. Or from the movie AI. Absolutely. Or even Bicentennial Man. Beautiful nod to those type of movies. But again, Roboto was built by Man-at-Arms. So he can very much build them all over again. Even Teela actually, says it within the episode. She says, oh, Man-at-Arms should rebuild you. And that's fine. If he rebuilds you, you'll be okay. And he says, no, I'm all right, Teela, because now I feel like, a human. But they could very much bring him back if they want to. You see? So the stakes are there, but they're not stakes that cannot be revisited or changed. Right? And so what ends up happening too after that is now they go to the Tower of Grayskull from that particular Eternia. And in that palace or that tower is the only way you can go back to the real world from heaven if one of the actual people that are there, that are living there for eternity, like in this case Grayskull, King Grayskull, opens up the chamber and allows the people to go back through. Because Teela, Evelyn, Beastman, and obviously and Andrea are not dead. They never died. So they're really not supposed to be there. You're only allowed there after you die. So before they do that, though, He-Man has a conversation with Teela. And in that conversation, Teela lets him know how much it broke her, how much it hurt her, what it meant to her, and what he meant to her. And at that conversation, they alluded that they were in love. That's a couple. Because for those of you that don't know, not only Teela becomes the new sorceress, or the next sorceress, which also in the episode where she meets up with her father, he tries to tell her, and Evelyn cuts him off with it. That's a story for another day. Also alluding that they can go that direction later on, which was also really against them. And He-Man and Teela get together, and they marry, and when He-Man becomes King Grayskull, or King He-Man, they have a son named Dare, which is the new hero. Okay? So it's not that Teela's trying to be the next He-Man. The same way in the second episode, in the third episode, which hit a lot of talking points that people don't try to bring up, and none of the people that I've seen, with exception of some in their reviews, brought it up or talked about it. Evelyn tries to tell, Andrea and Teela how she's been in the shadows of Skeletor, which she's always had, even though she's powerful, and she always wanted to be the one with the powers and rule things, and because of her fear towards him and her allegiance with him, she felt like she couldn't betray him. But mainly it's because she's afraid of him. And that women usually tend to pick the wrong type of men that are really not obtainable, that are not worth to be obtained anyway. And a very womanly conversation, and Teela tells her that's not the way it is. It's if you choose the right man. And even Evelyn tells Andrea, oh, don't waste your time with men. Bad men will be mad. And that's the way it is. And Teela told her, don't listen to her. She's just bitter because she chose to do this with a person, or basically a man, that's not a good man. But in her case, a good man, like her father or Adam, is worth the time of day. So we never once try to make a man in the writing like they're pieces of dog doo-doo. Which a lot of people are irresponsibly doing these videos on their channel saying that that's what it is, when it is not. And it's touched on the writing and in the episode. So Adams has this conversation with Mossman, And Mossman is there because now he's part of the Enchanted Forest. He is the Enchanted Forest. Which the Enchanted Forest, that's what he is in Eternia. So, like I said a little bit before earlier, because he has to do with nature and plant, and he gives them a whole spiel and thing about how we nurture, nature, and then when we die, we become nature, right? Because we're buried in the ground and become dust, and we're born from dust, right? Very beautiful speech. Alan Oppenheimer is the one who does the voice. Absolutely killed it. Love the Mossman character, even though they didn't show enough. But it shows that he can come back at any time because he's a magical being. He's a mystical being. He is the forest, which is awesome. And that shows that he's also very powerful. So that makes Adam think. And when they're about to leave, Adam says to Teela, I'll go where you go. Because Adam loves Teela. He always has. And that's why they get together later on. And they have their son. But you people don't know this. That try to act like you're a He-Man fan doing videos, and most of you don't even know this. Okay? And it's a shame. But the caveat is, if Adam leaves, he will never be able to have that spot with the other heroes to live the rest of his eternity in peace in the most beautiful place ever, which is Subternia, aka Preternia, aka heaven. So Adam chooses to go back unselfishly, take his place on eternity, and puts it to the side, knowing he can't go back, to follow the person that means the most to him, which is Teela and the people of Eternia. Like a true hero. The very epitome and essence of a hero. And what happens? They go back. As soon as they get there, they're in the middle of a battle. So he goes down into the chambers of Grayskull. He lost the sword. He says, by the power of Grayskull, and everything goes back to normal. The magic is back. Everything restores. Castle Grayskull is back in his form. Everybody's getting back to normal. Sorceress gets her power back. Everything is back to normal. Then he tries to say the power of Grayskull again to change himself into He-Man. Right? To fight the rest of the people that are there. And right before he does that, Evelyn discovers that, and they all discover, that Skeletor hid himself, his spirit, because he says, my spiritual essence, inside her staff the entire time, and reforms himself into matter, into a real life character, himself again. Once everything's restored, he can reform himself back into his body, so he's alive again. And in the minute that Adam is going to say, I have the power, I'm He-Man, whatever, he stabs him in the back and tries to kill him again. Wow. Then He-Man drops, and they go, oh no, and he takes the sword, and he says the most iconic words in history of iconic things with pop culture, and he becomes, for the very first time ever, which we've never seen before, Skeletor, which is the evil form of He-Man in Eternia. So now he's wielding the power of the sword. He can control Castle Grayskull, and he can wield the sword, which was part of the toy line. Whoever wields the sword can rule Castle Grayskull and the powers of Grayskull. And that's why the swords came split in half, and you could connect them together. Like in the case you see here, where you see He-Man's sword, and you see Skeletor's sword, and you just pop them together like so. This is how it was in the original toy line also. I don't even know if it's the original toy line also. And you see here, and one side purple, and you form one sword, and that is how he's kind of like the yin and the yang. They would form the good versus evil. And we've never seen that in any of the He-Man cartoons before. And because we've never seen that, that is why it makes it so interesting and so very compelling. And quite honestly, it makes you want and thirst for more. So what this series has done is basically opened up a whole can of worms to so many different directions that now is making you yearn and want more. And that's what makes it so amazing. It's brilliant. He wrote it with so much heart, so much thought, and he did it still respecting the characters, the lore, and the universe. When he killed off He-Man so heroically in the first episode, he didn't do it to disrespect He-Man. He did it to raise the stakes to an unbelievable and unimaginable place where people will be like, oh crap. And the entire time he's been telling people on social media the entire time that no, it wasn't focused more on Teela and the Masters, because he didn't want the story spoiled, which makes perfect sense, because someone went and told, for example, Clownfish TV, these people have the YouTube channel, kind of the synopsis and spoiled it, and they've been pushing the issue, and not let it play out. And Kevin Smith tried to answer the best he could without giving away anything and without disrespecting them, right? And now people are turning it and skewing it like he lied, he did it as an a-hole, he was being dumb. And even when he did his viewership the other day, when he was explaining certain things, because he's speaking about what's going on behind closed doors, they're trying to say that he's just making it up and using all these things to cover up, and it's really coming from him. And people don't realize that this is a business first. And when you work with other people, these things do happen. It's not just him in control, even though he's the lead creative source of the whole, show. And I really think he was just trying to make it into a more compelling and more engaging story, kind of like the way he's seen for so many years in the Marvel universe. Because that's why he said he didn't really like He-Man, because he was more into the Marvel stuff. But through the years, obviously, he gained appreciation and knows of He-Man when he was little. He knew about the toys, he knew about the cartoon. So he must have, at some point, watched it, but just wasn't as big of a fan as he was to comic books like Marvel stuff, or DC, which is okay. It's okay, as long as he tries to do things with this material in a respectful manner, even though it may seem daring and very evasive and very aggressive, right? But I think he did it with the right intentions. He has a plan. Him and the person involved with Ted, whatever his other name is, have a plan and what they want to do to make He-Man not just one season, but multiple seasons, so it could last for a long time. And us as He-Man fans should be happy and embracing this. I know it's different, but sometimes change is not bad. Sometimes change is good. It's just we gotta adapt to it because we're not used to those ideas. But something that brings something to the table that makes things fresh and makes it feel like, okay, well, this is new, can be very exciting and fun. It doesn't necessarily mean that someone's trying to disrespect the material or the fans or spit in their face, for that matter, which people are taking it at face value like he doesn't care. Even though if you follow Kevin Smith as long as you have, he's always been the same person. He's always been straightforward. He curses when he talks, he says stupid things, and that's just how he is. He's not trying to disrespect anybody. He's just being real. He is. The only thing I tell you guys as fans, and as a fan myself, you have every right not to like it, and that's fine. But if others like it, don't get upset with those people. Try to understand and embrace it the same way they are in the way that you can. And, you know, you don't have to like it. That's fine. But if things go better and become what you want it to be as it goes along, then I don't want to see later on people saying, oh, this is awesome. This is great. We got ahead of ourselves. No, because that's why you don't do those things. You respect people and their ideologies and what they say, or not ideologies, or the things they try to do, and don't jump the gun. You don't automatically assume that they're going to do this, they're going to do that, and they don't care about the fans and they don't care about the material. Because that's not the truth. That's not necessarily the truth in all cases. I know things have happened with other properties, but in this case it's not the same thing. Because we're dealing with somebody that understands pop culture and understands high stakes and understands drama and compelling stories. I think he did a great job. I'm very looking forward to it. I personally give the show a solid A. I give the show a solid A. And I really hope it goes in the direction that I think it's going, which is going to be that, you know, Tila will be the next sorceress, and He-Man and her will get together eventually at some point. But I think he's also going to tackle into new territory with other characters, which is going to be a lot of fun to see. Because they all now have a bigger role in this series, with meaning, heart, and worth, which is what you want. Because we always love characters like Roboto, but in the Filmation he was only in like 2 episodes, so it kind of made him feel like he was an afterthought. You see what I'm saying? Filmation was good for the time that it was, because it was a different time, the same way 2000X was. This, I'm pretty sure, will go down in history as it goes along, and as we see the bigger picture, as also the right thing for He-Man at the right time, based on the times now. Guys, I hope you like my thoughts. I hope you heard me out. I hope you don't get offended with what I said, and I hope you're understanding with what I've said. But I wanted to sit down and speak on this. It's going to be a long video, but if you sit down through it and listen to the whole thing, I think you're going to be pleasantly surprised, and I think you'll be happy with my thoughts and understand where I'm coming from. Because I'm not trying to look at this from a perspective negatively, and I'm not trying to bash anybody, and I'm not trying to say that you are wrong because you don't like it. No, I just wanted to do it in the most open-minded way and most positive way possible, because it's been a long time since we got anything He-Man, and I want to continue to get more He-Man stuff, like a live-action film that's long overdue. And if we start bashing this and the series gets canceled, and they don't do anything for another 20 years, guess what? Most of us will probably be dead. We won't even be here no more. Or if we're here, we're going to be too old to even appreciate it the way we would, because, you know, we have other important things in our lives, like health and getting prepared for our afterlife, right? It's just the truth. Let's enjoy things and not be so afraid just because it's trying to do it in a different way. Let's give it a chance. Let's cross our fingers and hope for the best. Let's be positive. Let's unify and unite instead of being angry and making fun of it, when you can clearly see that a lot of heart and effort was put into this. It's your boy Hebot signing off. I'll see you in the next one, guys. I hope you liked it. Love you guys very much. Give me a thumbs up if you did, or a thumbs down if you didn't. Let me know in the comments below what you think of my thoughts. Let's have a conversation. But let's do it being respectful. Don't be toxic. Because we're not going to solve and get anywhere that way. I think we resolve more if we do it with good conversation. And share it with video with someone you think might like it. If you're new to my channel, thank you for stopping by. And if you subscribe, I appreciate it. because I know you didn't have to. But if you did, remember, consider you now part of their family. So, as always, like they say, good journey. And you guys, let's hope for the best, man. This is really exciting times to be an He-Man fan. We have a lot of things, and even the Revelation toys. So, I'll see you guys then, right? Bye. Bye. Love you guys. See you then. Bye.